This is day 6 of the September 93 7-day retreat at Springwater. Most questions in meetings have been about what is this I. Can you say more about it? Why does it feel so difficult to realize it is made up of thought and image? Can you say some more about whether there is something that about myself that is not thought or image, that goes beyond that? Yesterday the question had been, it's relatively easy to see that the word tree is not that real thing, it's just the word. Why is it so difficult to see that I, me are words and ideas? Before entering into this bundle of questions, let me say that whatever is said in a talk can never, ever possibly cover the whole thing. I don't know the whole thing. And things that are referred to in talking, pointed at with words, are never all of it, the whole thing. I may forget to say things, overlook things, not be aware of things that someone else is aware of and would like to have mentioned. That's what meetings are for, to bring it up, to dialogue together, if you will. To keep this whole thing fluid and flexible and not rigid and crystallized. Two or three people mentioned, why do you never speak of the nice and kindly things that we human beings do? There's so much kindliness in this world. And I miss it in your talks. Maybe it is that kindliness, compassion, meaning passion with everyone, entirely non-judgmental, does not seek the limelight. It goes on unobtrusively. One could almost say hidden. and never has the aspect of the spectacular. And people who come here and talk with me usually don't talk about their kindliness and compassion. But about the problems that not they or me, but all of us face and give birth to and perpetuate and manifest, put it whichever way you wish. So the talks try to enter into what causes or may cause our sorrow and suffering and feelings of separation and division, and all the behavior and reactions that come out of fear and division. So in talking about that, it is not to exclude or deny or negate that human beings like you and me are capable of kindliness, caring for each other. But when that happens, it never is a problem to anyone. And maybe therefore does not get much attention. We have talked a lot since the beginning of this retreat about the sense of self, self-image, image of others, and how this prevents the directness and immediacy of relationship. And people, participants, working in this retreat, we come more and more upon this self-image or the sense of me thinking about myself, emoting about myself, or what the thoughts about myself and my relationships elicit in the body. And on the one hand, the imprisonment in self-concern and self-interest is felt more acutely in a retreat maybe than at any other time. How tenacious and powerful and often unnoticed these thoughts about myself and the feelings that are connected with them take place and carry on. How absorbed we get, or how much absorption there is in these thoughts, and how little attention when that takes place, because it seems so real. Living through what happened last week with someone, or yesterday what happened to myself, the hurt I suffered, the pain, and the vivacious, the vividness of the recall of imagery, of memory, and with it the vividness of the emotions that are triggered by maybe just one thought of remembering what happened to me yesterday or 5 years ago. The vividness of remembering what happened to me 5 years ago and what shouldn't have happened but could have happened had I responded differently or had the others acted differently can still create a tremendously entangling web now. And only in waking up to the fact that this is just what happened for the last hour or 2 hours or 5 minutes, and waking up to this, one realizes it has been something unreal, like a movie, a video, that was captivating this whole body-mind to the exclusion of hearing the birds or geese flying overhead, the wind or rain, or people moving around one. One person who came here, actually he came from Germany. I asked him, how did you happen to ever get into this? Not just this center here, but into meditation. And he said, it happened simply like this. The pleasure of my week is Sunday breakfast, cooking myself a soft-boiled egg, getting some white bread and toasting it, and making a fresh cup of good coffee. I look forward to this all week long. And one Sunday morning, toast was toasted, egg was boiled, coffee was brewed. And then suddenly I realized, where is my breakfast? It was gone. And I hadn't paid one bit of attention. It was gone, and I hadn't been there. I got to do something about it. So the initial question, why is it so hard to see that me and my concerns are ideas and images and emotions? That it doesn't refer to some real entity is not helped by the fact that it seems real as we're involved and absorbed in thoughts about ourselves. At the moment of absorption, self-absorption, that fact is real, that thoughts are spinning, emotions are aroused, and emotions give rise to more thoughts. Thoughts give rise to more physical sensations of anger or frustration or sadness. And sadness gives rise to the thought, I don't want to feel this way. I want to feel different, I want to be rid of it. That's the reality of it, the thinking and the emoting. But it's all based on memory and imagery and conditioned responses to that imagery of the other, of myself. Who or what is the real me or the real you, apart from the ideas and history and remembrances that are so captivating and masquerade for reality? And we don't deny the reality of electrochemical neurological processes throughout the body, manifesting as tensions or stress or joy, pleasure, anxiety. the question, what is this I? What is this me? Is not a new one to us. It is thousands of years old. People have contemplated this because of the power of this involvement with me, myself, with what I'm attached to and identified with. The in-group, the out-group, all created by this thought process and emotion process. What is this I? What is the me? Is an ancient and a very modern meditative inquiry. Socrates supposedly stood on the marketplace, lecturing and asking people to know themselves. Not by the book, but in a new way. And who am I is an ancient question, not only in Eastern religion, also in Western mysticism. And people often come to meditation with that question, which has been cropping up in their minds for a long time. Wondering what they really are. You can get so absorbed in this as a meditative practice, like questioning who am I on every exhalation, or just who on the exhalation, that a certain state of mind or a certain state of emptiness can be produced, I will say, by repetitive questioning, a repetitive use of the body. And with that repetitive questioning of who, our daily moment-to-moment problems with fear, anger, or anxiety can be hooed out of the way. A fearful thought arises, an angry remembrance arises, and the accumulated energy power of who can sort of blow it away. And with that never understanding about anger, fear, and anxiety, or desire, which may have to be experienced and listened to, felt, and looked into directly as it occurs, as it manifests, without creating this total cocoon of absorption. In the cocoon of absorption, nothing is learned. It is just a thickening of the walls, a thickening of whatever happens in the brain. Synapses are supposed to connect thought, neurons with neurons, thought with emotion. And by more and more thinking about something and emoting correspondingly, the habit to go on with that thickens, and the walls of isolation may also thicken. So just going through it in an unaware way is like finding your breakfast is gone. You haven't lived, you haven't noticed the swarm of geese flying by, or the person who's been talking to you, haven't watched or listened. what's going on around one and inside one in a different way, not in a totally absorbing and spinning cocoon way. So, when we talk about here, about self-image, how it hides what I am, because I want to live up to what people have told me I am, because I want to live up to an example that looms large in my mind of a successful person, of an enlightened person, of a great piano player, or whatever one's ideas or ideals may be. The image has the power to motivate action. And to motivate identity with it. The image becomes me and it determines my actions, and my actions solidify the image. Or if we haven't talked in this retreat much about fear or anger. Each retreat is different. Last retreat, I think we had 1 or 2 talks on fear and anger, because this is what came up in meetings. Looking into what is anger, what is fear, not just something to be avoided or meditated away with some practice, but to enter into, to listen to it, to see what happens without resistance. Is that possible? To feel the pain of fear, or the utter discomfort of fear without resistance. Which means, doesn't it, that there has to be a subtle awareness of the resistances that body and mind have built up over many years to feel that discomfort. Discomfort manifests in the body at a fearful thought. What will happen to me in the future or tomorrow? Based on what is remembered that has happened to me in the past, or that I have heard that has happened to other people. That thought elicits what we call fear, which is discomfort throughout the body, in the stomach, in the nervous system, in the intestines, in the heart, in the breathing, in the muscles. And on top of it, a resistance to feel it. We don't want it. We don't like it. We feel it's unbearable. Want to get away from it. Deny it, repress it, not feel it. And it's part of what am I at this moment? What is manifesting at this moment is part of this question. There's no separation between spiritual matters and mundane matters. Everything that happens from moment to moment is worthy of being felt, listened to, looked at, experienced, without resistance. But resistance cannot be wished away. It needs to be discovered, felt. And it is not impossible. It is very possible to feel the body tensing and bracing against its own manifestations, aided by such injunctions from the mind. Don't feel that way. Don't get into this. Get out of that. You could say, well, why should I become aware of this? There's no should in here. Even though it sounds like it, a new injunction is put into the mind. Be aware of this, pay attention. But this is not the essence of this talk. The essence of this talk is to look at and feel and listen to what's there. And to discover resistance to that. Without discovering it, it goes on. And the reason most of us come here because we're hemmed in by resistances and fears and would like to find a way out. Usually imagining a much more complicated way than just being with what's there. It seems too simple, too unexalted, unspectacular. Simply discovering quietly, subtly, vulnerably what's happening. Whether it's fear or anger or desire, wanting something, to listen to the wanting. And the wanting being nurtured and fed by an image of what we want, seeing ourselves with that wanted thing, possession or person. That image is immensely powerful to set the whole body in motion. All systems go, wanting this or him or her. And that wonder of wonders can be listened to, can come into awareness. If there isn't total absorption, total cocoon existence, which is not being condemned. It is a fact, it happens. But in the cocoon existence, a moment of awakening can take place and does take place, which instantly sheds light on what has just happened, the wanting and the imagery and more wanting, and can, at this moment, a new listening set in, listening to what just has been set in motion throughout this body. So, with such interest and openness and vulnerability, that there's no need to feed it with more imagery. Listening to what is manifesting in this body is sufficient in itself. It doesn't need imagery. It's something that's happening, like bird call or wind blow. And with that attention or awareness or there-ness, withness, suchness, whatever the word may be, things change. They're not the same as they were in the cocoon existence, where the image feeds the body and the body feeds the image, and it is not conscious. It just goes on and on and on mechanically. Have we gotten away from the question, what am I? Or is that part of it? do we have a feeling as though, and different people will point to different places in their body, maybe to the heart or the head or the solar plexus or wherever, this is me, this is where I am. In there someplace, do we have that feeling? That inside this body there is the me residing someplace. The words make it sound a little bit suspect. But I don't want to make it suspect. I want to bring out the feeling. Is there such a feeling? There is something inside. It is me, not you. I was thoroughly plagued by that question for years. And having seen through a few koans, did not resolve this question of what is this I. It seemed so strong, so powerful, so real. So, is one interested, willing and ready to give one's whole life to this question, if need be? Then there's no pressure to come up with an answer, and lots of time and space to observe what is going on from moment to moment. Is the I, the me, indeed just image and memory and thought with connected feelings and emotions? Ask that of yourselves if you're interested in this question, and then watch, observe, or wake up to it when this amazing thing happens. A moment of attention, of waking up. Maybe a moment of waking up so thoroughly that there is no I feeling. That thought, that self-reflective process or rhythm or program is quiet. It's not there, it's not working. It's just the bird and the heartbeat and people moving and cool air. And no self-reference, no thought saying, well, how do I get into this? Where am I in this? That thought is quiet for a moment. That can happen and does happen and has happened to human beings since recorded history, and it must have happened before. Because thinking about oneself is a mechanical process. It is a program, a conditioning. Individually maintained but fed collectively into each newborn baby by the parents and elders and peers who have been fed collectively into this notion that there is a separate, independent me. Different for different cultures. In some cultures, the individual me is not fed at all. There it is the tribal or communal me or self. But taking such a moment, which has happened to so many people, they report it to me, talk about it, the freedom of a moment with no one there, and yet everything there, so clearly and crisply, because there's no electrochemical smog in the brain generated by, how do I relate to this? What is in it for me? Or just thoughts about my difficult past or promising future. All of that reflection being quiet. There are, at that moment, not even words to explain it. That happens later. But there's no feeling of isolation or separation or division, inside or out. No inside and out. And then, as everyone has experienced that, the thought coming up, I want to keep that. This is where I want to live. I want to have that. What did I do to bring this about? So I can repeat this. And at this moment, the I feeling is going on again. It's reborn, if you will. My wants, my desires, my imagination of having this forever. And as this happens, the division is reinstated, as it were. Me and my circumstances, me and the world out there, which for a moment was so joyfully, marvelously absent. But the amazing fact is such a rebirth, if you will, of the me thought, the me reflection, can also be seen and not take over instantly. It can be seen for just a thought, a desire, a longing. And the narrowing down of open space with that thought and desire and longing and trying to control, that brings the space down to size again, to cocoon size, as we've called it today. That can be seen. It can be seen almost happening, or if it has happened and is not seen, then there can be a waking up to it and realizing narrow space and the remembrance of big space. Caused by what? A change in thinking is a change in the body. It's as simple as that. The body responds differently to mechanical, I and you, us and them centered thoughts as it does to openness, without that reference point. It's a differently functioning body, and it's a differently functioning energy, which can be glimpsed, maybe glimpsed at first, and glimpsed again. But it doesn't have to remain a glimpse. We said that earlier in a talk. But will having more of it become a self-enclosing thought and emotion process? Or taking away from this moment of just being there with whatever is there, the pain, maybe the pain of loss, the thought I've lost it and that causes pain, and feeling that without resistance. Can this become so simple that it is really, truly a moment-to-moment living? For moments at a time, not to make it into a goal, which brings image and desire for that state. And therefore, this moment is not fully lived. It is just lived in, like in a movie of what I want. See, words always make it sound more complicated, don't they? But the call of a crow the moving of bodies, the breathing, the heartbeat, a yawn. It's simple, it's there. It's not imagined. The self-reflective processes that go on in the brain involving the body are not of my doing. There is no controller in this organism that says, okay, now I want to think about myself, now I don't. There may be such a thought, but there is no such control, except the power of thought to suppress some other thoughts. There is no thinker of the thoughts. There's only thoughts going on, mostly acquired collectively, some of them added through individual preference, attraction to some thoughts, rejection of others. But most of the thoughts that are spinning and weaving and flowing in this consciousness are collectively shared in one way or another by all of us. If there is a strong feeling that there is a thinker who thinks these thoughts, then what is it? Where is it? Can one come upon this thinker or this controller? With which me is often identified. Me is the thinker or the controller of my actions. Looking, observing, waking up to things that just went on. What reveals itself is thought and memory. No entity which can be called, this is me. But this, each one has to find out for herself, for himself. And let the question nag one. Because the more nagging the question, the more energy to look and listen, because there's interest to find out what I am. Asking the question, not mechanically repeating it, asking it and then pausing, being quiet, to see whether the question itself will begin to operate. Not in a mechanical fashion, but revealing things about moment-to-moment living. Or in a retreat, an increasing slowing down of thoughts, slowing down of the body. It happens most of the time, not always. Some retreats are different than others. And maybe the comparative aspect of the brain also slows down, so there's not much way of comparing it to the way it was before. It is slower. and therefore can be seen easier. And where is this I in all of this? Thinking and emoting. Where is it? What is it? What is this me? Listening as some bird calls. Some movements of bodies. Looking ahead, there are trees and hills, doors, windows, people. Where is the separation? The moment the thought I arises, there it is. Without it, where is the separation? Flies buzzing? And this no separation, can that be known? Or need it be known? Or is it just everything that is? Which also is nothing. Not the idea of nothing, but brimming with energy. We will end here for today.